Greetings to you, Inquisitor. I am to serve as assistant to any research concerns. You'll find my skills are exceptional. I hope...
You're taking a...
Yes,
What is she doing?
I wasn't told.
You were made...
Yes, I remember that being a difficult time, but I cannot...
How can you, sir?
I
What makes you...
remember being fond of animal.
What is your...
Adequate. Based on a partial...
As you were.
Yes, Inquisitor.
Brilliant, isn't it? One moment you're trying to restore order in a world gone mad. That should be enough for anyone to handle, yes? Then, out of nowhere, an archdemon appears and kicks you in the head. What? You thought this would be easy? No, I was just hoping you wouldn't crush our village like an anthill. Sorry about that. Archdemons like to crush, you know. Can't be helped. Am I speaking too quickly for you?
I was distracted, that's all.
Distracted? By my wit and charm? I have plenty of both.
Today, at least.
Oh, you wound me. I always assumed the Elder One behind the Venatori was a Magister. But this is something else completely. In Tevinter, they say the Chantry's tales of Magisters starting the Blight are just that. Tales. But here we are. One of those very Magisters, a dark spawn.
Who does the Imperium say started the Blight?
You know how it is. Not us. They say dark spawn were always there. Magisters and the Blight aren't even related. Is that a surprise? No one wants to admit they shit the bed. But if Corypheus is one of the Magisters who entered the Black City and he's dark spawn, what other explanation is there?
We only know what Corypheus claims to be.
True. He might be a convincing liar, or delusional, or insane. But how many delusional maniacs are going to have that knowledge? He broke open the Fade. I knew what I was taught couldn't be the whole truth, but I assumed there had to be a kernel of it, somewhere. But no, it was us all along. We destroyed the world.
Last I checked, the Blights hadn't actually destroyed the world.
Not for lack of trying. If they were more clever, they'd have unleashed something that would really do the job. I have no intention of letting Corypheus win. Not without someone from Tevinter standing against him. It would have been nice if you'd helped stop Alexius. But that's not how things went. So be it. If it's all the same to you, I'd like to stay and help the Inquisition.
You'd really fight your own countrymen?
Southerners like to think of the Imperium as nothing but slavers and cultists. Why not? That's all you see. But it's not true. Some Tevinters are not only handsome and well-dressed, but rather put off by all that rot. So, I'll happily kill cultists or anyone who thinks a Darkspawn god is the way of the future.
What if this is a ruse? The Venatori could have captured you, sent you here.
Rather elaborate, considering they'd need to have assumed you'd escape Haven. But I am the ideal spy. Charming, clever, perfect teeth and hair. It all fits. How about this? Let me help, and you can hang me later, if you wish. I look good in rope.
We can use all the help we can get.
No one will thank me, whatever happens. No one will thank you either. You know that, yes?
That's not why I'm doing this.
I knew there was something clever about you. All I know is this. Corypheus needs to be stopped. Men like him ruined my homeland. I won't stand by and let him ruin the world. Oh, and congratulations on that whole leading the Inquisition thing, by the way. Roderick, that Chantry fellow who led us through the mountain from Haven. You know he died, I assume. Got us as far as the camp, and then... that was it.
I'm shocked he helped us instead of running off.
I imagine being attacked by something undeniably evil changes one's perspective a bit. I helped him walk. He... talked about you quite a bit. He just needed to be sure you were Andraste's chosen. He was terrified of what it meant, if it were true. But in the end, he believed. He asked me to tell you he was sorry.
You shouldn't have judged me so quickly.
Even the best of us have been guilty of that, huh? Anyway, we can talk about something else if you'd rather.
There must be some reason you haven't left. You can't want to stay.
Why? I have to be fond of you to agree with what you're doing. I do think you blunder about, Inquisitor, thrashing like a caged dragon at everything that displeases you. I still believe Corypheus needs to be stopped, and that I need to be here to help stop him.
Oh, you think you'd be such an immense help against Corypheus?
If you'd let me, yes. I have every reason to put my life on the line here. Corypheus was a Magister. He represents everything dark and terrible in my country. I have to help. Even if it means I stand on the sidelines watching, I'll do it. I need to know he's defeated. If that's meaningless to you, then tell me to go and I will.
No, I'm not asking you to leave.
Excellent. Then let's not belabor it further.
So, I assume you're Talvashoth or something like.
Why would you assume that?
If you weren't, you would have split my skull open at our first meeting before I said a word. Centuries of warfare with the Qunari do lead to this state of affairs.
You've encountered Qunari before?
Qunari raids are rather old hat for anyone from the Eastern Imperium, although the attacks aren't quite the rampaging wars of ages past. Now we're like two angry dowagers who only remember to spit at each other when they pass on the street.
Did you meet any Qunari personally?
None who weren't rushing towards me with a sword. I was too busy running in the other direction to say hello.
I've met some Talvashoth in my time, however. Mercenaries and a few merchants. They're not the same as Qunari. Might easily be a different people altogether.
If only other people knew that.
It's a southerner thing. Most of them don't even know what a Qunari looks like. Forgive their ignorance, O mighty one. They shall learn proper fear in time.
If you've no problem with me, I've no problem with you.
A philosophy I've learned to live by.
No issue with my being Inquisitor, then?
None that specifically involve you being so very, very large. No.
Good. It occurs to me that I barely know anything about you.
Beyond my being a mage from Tevinter, you mean?
Beyond that, yes.
And beyond my being so charming and well-dressed, which is obvious to anyone.
I'm well aware of your finer qualities, believe me.
Of course I believe you. The moment I saw you, I thought, there's a man who knows quality. Now, what was I talking about? Ah, yes, me. I am the scion of House Parvis, a product of generations of careful breeding and the repository of its hopes and dreams. Naturally, I despised it all. The lies, the scheming, the illusions of supremacy. That's Tevinter in a nutshell, isn't it? Needless to say, my family was not happy with my choices.
What did you mean by generations of careful breeding?
The great families of Tevinter don't have children. They refine traits, weed out the undesirable, and promote the rest. My mother was chosen for my father because magic runs strongly in her blood. Never mind that they loathed each other. They wanted a son who could become Archon to make House Parvis the envy of the Imperium. They got me. A cautionary tale that you should be careful what you wish for.
Why would your family be upset with your choices?
Because I rejected their idyllic plan. If they had their way, by now I'd be married to some unlucky girl from a powerful family. We'd live in luxurious despair, despising each other as I waited to take my father's place in the Magisterium. I declined the honor, and thus it's best I'm far from home. Less of an embarrassment that way, you see?
I'm getting the impression you don't care much for your homeland.
On the contrary, I care for my homeland a great deal. There's so much potential. Sadly, we squander it. We refuse to acknowledge how far we've fallen because pretending is easier. We pretend the Qunari can be beaten. We pretend that we're superior to everyone, even our own people. Not everyone feels that way. I don't. Sadly, we're the minority.
It just seems so much of what you say about the Imperium is entirely negative.
It might sound that way. For all our faults, my people have many virtues. We are laden with history and culture. Tevinter is where Thedas truly began, remember? We treasure our past and preserve it. You can walk down a side street and find nothing built during the modern ages. And despite appearances, we care. Deeply. About everything. We have no reserve, not in war and not in love. If I truly believed my homeland was beyond all hope, I wouldn't miss it so much.
Why remain with the Inquisition? Why not go back to Tevinter?
I'm not exactly welcome back home. Not that it matters, I'm quite accustomed to being a pariah. It adds to my charm. I can do more for Tevinter here. If the Venatori succeed, it'll set my homeland back 1,000 years. I'm sure some Magisters would disagree. But that's why we kill them.
I think I've heard enough.
That's too bad. I never tire of talking about myself.
I'd like to ask you about Tevinter.
Ah, yes. Everyone outside the Imperium always seems quite fascinated by it. Probably why they come up with so many ridiculous tales. Flying cows over Minrathous. That's madness. All right, that one's actually true, but the cows didn't have wings. I digress. Anything in particular you wanted to know?
Just how often is blood...
Oh,
Not at all.
that's what any magic... Of course, what people call blood magic here, and what we consider blood magic are two different things.
What's considered...
Blood magic... The problem is that what's permitted only gets you so much power. And what if you need more? That's where we get it behind cloak. It's safe to assume that any mage of rank does it.
You'd think the Templars would have...
I imagine they once. Nowadays, only the friendless are accused.
There must be some mages who oppose this.
Of course. Occasionally. Meanwhile, most learn to keep quiet. Me?
Anyone who talked...
Ah,
And did...
not personally. Back home, it's... how it is. Slaves are everywhere. You don't question it. I'm not even certain many slaves do.
You think slaves like it that way? Don't be ridiculous.
I didn't say they like it. It's all most of them know. In the south, you have alienages, slums, both human and elven. The desperate have no way out. Back home, a poor man can sell himself. As a slave, he could have a position of respect, comfort, and could even support a family. Some slaves are treated poorly, it's true. But do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better?
I suppose not, no.
I don't know what it's like to be a slave, true. I never thought about it until I saw how different it was here. But I suspect you don't know either. Nor should you believe that every tale of Tevinter excess is the norm.
It seems strange.
I find it strange.
Actually, the fiction in the Imperium, the Magisterium rules. That Magisters are all mages is considered a convenient technicality.
What is the Magisterium, exactly?
The upper house of the Imperial Senate, and the only part worth having a seat on. Those seats are split among the circles of Magi, the Chantry, and the major families. All mages now. It's odd that outside the Imperium, you use Magister like it applies to every Tevinter mage.
If you're not a Magister, then what are you called? No special title?
I'm an Altus, which is almost as good as a Magister, depending on who you ask.
I've never heard of an Altus.
Upper class. Those families who trace descent from the Dreamers, the first prophets of the old gods. If you're a mage and you're not Altus, then you're later, lower class. If you're not a mage at all, you're Soperati. That's everyone else. We do love our fancy words.
I thought the Archon ruled over the Imperium.
Well, yes. Technically, he can overrule laws passed by the Magisterium, but that never happens. Even so, he gets to appoint new Magisters, which means all the families vie madly for his favor. Thus, the Archon gets invited to all the parties. The truest path to Tevinter influence, let me tell you.
If it's a fiction, that means mages do rule, then.
Yes and no. Let me put it this way. Mages do rule, but not all mages are equal. If you're not from the right family, chances are you don't rule anything. Maybe you're even a slave. The idea that anyone could be a mage, however, keeps the masses placated.
Can anyone be a mage?
Technically, the potential runs mostly in bloodlines, but it's been known to happen. More importantly, commoners believe it can. Tevinter legend is chock full of mage heroes from humble origins. So they hold out hope. Someday my son or my son's son will be a mage. Someday. Poor sods don't realize that means he'll be a quaestor at the arse end of the 100 Pillars, at best.
Being a Quaestor isn't a good thing?
I imagine the average non-mage likes to think so. Counting numbers and shuffling papers all day is better than many occupations after all. If you're a second-class citizen among a pack of piranha, however, your outlook changes.
But let me ask you something else.
Of course.
There's an Imperial Chantry, isn't there? With its own divine?
You people aren't supposed to talk about the Black Divine, are you? If you mention him outside the Imperium, people make that face, like you're urinating in public. But yes, we do have the Chantry, or a version of it. Night and day comparing it to yours.
Is the Imperial Chantry so different from ours?
Not in theory. The main difference is in the whole magic is meant to serve man, not rule over him business. Back home, ruling the unwashed masses is serving them, for the good of the Imperium. Perhaps it started with good intentions, but these days it's academic. The circles are in command.
There are circles of Magi in the Imperium?
We don't have dismal little mage prisons, if that's what you mean. They're academies, prestigious ones. We have Templars as well, but they don't cancel spells or whatever your Templars do. They're soldiers. They watch for abuse of magic, yes, but only those who are weak or who fall out of favor get dealt with. Mostly they enforce the Magisterium's edicts. The Chantry smiles and nods from the sidelines.
Do you really call him the Black Divine?
We don't call him that, oh no. In the Imperium, he's the true divine. The woman sitting on the Sunburst throne is some backwater pretender. It all stems from a disagreement over Andraste. Marvelous, isn't it?
Why would they disagree over Andraste?
It's not my field of expertise, but the Imperium believes Andraste was a mortal woman, a mage. Down south, they say, no, she's the bride of the Maker, ascended to his side, divine provenance, a blah blah blah. We feel better believing Andraste was one of us. Makes executing her less damning, you see. So we elected a man as divine, the South declared war, and we've been feuding cousins ever since.
So the Imperial Divine is always a man?
All the better to distinguish him from that other one, yes. Don't think there aren't a number of female magisters who bristle at that. Why can't they be divine after all? Same reason you never see a man on the Sunburst throne. Because that's how it's always been done. Excellent reasoning.
Do you consider yourself Andrastian?
The big question. It might surprise you that I do consider myself Andrastian. I simply do not believe in the Chantry. It is a relic, whether back home or here in the South. Something from a bygone age desperately clinging to relevance. It's not an opinion that makes me popular.
I'm not surprised. It's not an opinion you should share.
You did ask, if you'll recall. I'll say this. I may not believe in the Chantry, but I believe in you.
In me?
That the Maker sent you, whether through Andraste or fate. Cassandra is not wrong. You are what we needed most at the moment we needed it. That's what they will say in ages to come.
That's true. I was just agreeing with you.
Don't agree on my account. Me? The world is... The Maker doesn't need me to believe. But I do.
Let me ask you something else.
So many questions.
I'm wondering if the Imperium would be a useful ally.
I'd think you'd be more concerned whether or not they'd support the Venatori. They won't, of course. At least, not officially. They'll disavow all knowledge of dangerous cultists. Secretly, many Magisters will rejoice at the idea. And if the South falls to chaos in the meantime, all the better.
It would be in the Imperium's best interest to help. Surely it could use allies.
I think the Imperium gave up on the idea of allies a long time ago. We've been fighting the Qunari for what? 200 years off and on? It's a point of pride that we go it alone. They'll sneer at the South behind their silk handkerchiefs and say, "You've had it easy for far too long." Let's not forget that the Inquisition seems to be an arm of the Orlesian Chantry. Anathema so far as they're concerned.
We're not part of the Chantry. The Chantry opposed the Inquisition's formation.
You think that matters? Don't be silly. The Herald of Andraste. Your very title smacks of the Southern Chantry. You may as well be a heathen. I think they're far more frightened what you'll do if you succeed.
That's all I wanted to know.
Fair enough.
I should go.
I do rather like watching you leave.
What was this place? So much room for whatever was here.
Inquisitor,
I need to know more about Corypheus.
we spoke of this on our travels to Skyhall. What more can I tell you? Cassandra and Varric seem more familiar with their adversary.
You've given me good counsel before. I could use some now.
My apologies, Inquisitor. My poor manners shame me. I claim no secret wisdom, but I will guess as best I can.
I would like to know more about the orb he carries.
As I said, that must be the means by which he created the breach. I suspect the blast that destroyed the Conclave was more accident than anything. The result of unlocking power that had sought release for ages. What I cannot understand is how he managed to survive such an explosion.
You said that you believe the orb is Elven.
I never would have believed a Tevinter mage could unlock such a powerful relic. It clearly enhances his abilities, giving him access to power he should never have known.
Like the power to control the Archdemon.
Indirectly, one assumes. Nothing in any law connects my people to the old god dragons who became archdemons.
What do you think Corypheus will do next?
You shamed him when you destroyed Haven. It spoiled his glorious victory. It would be worse to acknowledge that you had done so. He must continue on his course or show weakness. He will return to his plans to throw Orlais into chaos, and then conquer it for Tevinter.
You're sure that's what he'll do?
As certain as is possible. Assuming I can plausibly predict a man who seeks to rise to godhood.
And can you?
The key is understanding this. No real god need prove himself. Anyone who tries is mad or lying. His deception will undo him, as it has done countless fools before.
What can you tell me about the source of Corypheus's power?
According to the law, the ancient Magistars of Tevinter received guidance from the old gods. Corypheus commands a false archdemon, a corrupted old god. This suggests he no longer sees himself as their minion. Some of his unique power comes from the corruption of the Blight. The rest may come from the orb he carries.
We'll talk later.
Goodbye.
Someone emptied a whole bag of turnips into the fire. Ah, Maker, the smell is everywhere. I was going to use them for dinner and then... I can't recall who took them.
Can you arrange what we discussed earlier, Ambassador?
I found the money. The Inquisition will compensate the families of those we lost at Haven.
Thank you.
Inquisitor. Are you all right, Leliana? Are you? I suppose not. Haven was trying.
Yes?
Is there anything I can do to...
After the I've received news that some tomes have been located.
I'll look into it.
If you can take... Yes?
I wanted to ask you about...
Of course. What do you wish to know?
You must have an...
Having opinion, I have known some. I have suffered Personally, I have found the Templars a useful tool.
skilled at keeping more unpleasant elements at bay.
If the Circle...
The Circle is an idea. Many of the first enchanters voted for rebellion, caring little that anything short of a unanimous decision would pit mage against mage. Rather than dissolving it, Grand Enchanter Fiona's vote split the Circle in two. The rebels follow her, the loyalists follow me.
If you lead all the Loyalists, why are you only First Enchanter and not Grand Enchanter?
Grand Enchanters are elected, and since there are no First Enchanters besides myself, no vote can be held. I could name myself Grand Enchanter, but the title holds no meaning now. When the circles are restored, that will change.
What was it like?
My dear, I cannot tell you. And some people... The same is true of people everywhere, in all circumstances, whether they are mages or not.
So, tell me about your personal experience with the Circle.
I enjoyed life in the Montsimard Circle, my dear. It was an edifice devoted to knowledge and refinement. And mages need the company of other mages. No one else can truly understand the challenges we face, nor see the world as we do.
You must have been...
My dear, all that was required. Some circles were harsher in their restrictions. Perhaps too permissive, in retrospect.
How did we come to this state where the Circle's in revolt?
A failure of perspective that infected Circle leadership. Mages lived solely in a world of Templars and mages. They could not even imagine what was beyond the tower walls. Kirkwall gave the world a reason to remember its fear of magic. A mage killed hundreds with a snap of their fingers. Across Thedas, a new tangible fear of magic grew. Commoners and nobles alike called out to the Chantry for protection. But the malcontents in the towers thought nothing of this. They cared only for themselves and for their anger at the new Templar restrictions. When a mage attempted to assassinate Divine Justinia, again, the mages protested the investigation. The leadership chose to vote on independence based on the intolerable conditions imposed by the Templars, sparing no thought to the fact that magic was more feared in the aftermath of these attacks than it had been since Tevinter's day. So long as they had their freedom, they could care little for riots, angry mobs, or about pitting mages against each other.
Are you familiar with Grand Enchanter Fiona?
We've met. Before her, in her dotage, we would have done better to replace her years ago, to let her spend time gardening.
Did they have cause to...
In the aftermath, by voting, a war in which we are outnumbered 100.
I thought the fighting...
The vote for those who were... By breaking from the Chantry, anyone who did not wish to support terrorism and the slaughter of innocents was forced to take arms against the rebels. Yes?
I'd like to know more about...
Whatever would you like to know?
Your accent...
I am from the but if you must know, I was sent to the Ostwick Circle, but I transferred to Montsimard while still an apprentice.
I'm curious how a Circle mage winds up at court here.
Nobody winds up at court. I caught the eye. When the position of Enchanter to the Imperial Court became vacant, I was able to secure it.
You're married to the Duc de Ghislaine?
Of course not, my dear. Don't be ridiculous. Marriage is the business of alliance and inheritance. I'm Bastien's mistress.
And what does the Duchess de Ghislaine think of this arrangement?
We got along quite well. Duchess Nicoline and I used to host musical salons together. She was a great patron of the arts. She passed away from a fever a few years ago, the poor dear.
What duties?
I am most of my predecessors in such troubled times as these, however, I provide political...
Do you think that...
How very sweet of you to ask.
Need something?
Carry on.
Someone left sliced plums on the windowsill again. The juice is attracting flies. There are spiders everywhere. The plums were right in front of me, but can't quite recall who took them.
Can I help you?
I'd like to know more about your work with the Ben Hasrath.
Ben Hasrath is actually a general term. You've got the secret police who investigate problems inside our territory. You've got the re-educators who take people with problems and fix their minds. Or make them disappear. And then you've got the spies.
How do the re-educators work?
I only know the basics. Keep a man awake. You don't need blood magic or demons to change someone's mind. We're a lot more fragile than we'd like to believe.
My parents told me stories about what the re-educators did.
Yes, you were lucky your parents got away. The weak minds get bent into the right shape. Strong minds like yours, they'd have given you a poison called Kamek. You'd have been a polite, happy laborer for the rest of your life. And you'd have had a handler to help you eat and make sure you didn't crap your pants.
And you're a spy?
Close. I am now, I suppose. But that's not how I started. They sent me to Saharan because they needed someone who could fight and hunt down problems. That whole island was a sack of cats. Incursions from Tevinter, Tal Vashath, and native rebels fighting both sides. And in the middle, me, trying to wrangle the rebels and restore order.
I can't imagine that was easy.
Nope. I hunted down a lot of rebels. Lost a lot of friends to the Vince, or the Fog Warriors, or the Tal Vashath. One day I woke up and couldn't think of a damned reason to keep doing my job. Turned myself into the re-educators.
Obviously, you made it out alive.
I wasn't sure I would, but I honestly didn't care at that point. I just couldn't keep fighting that fight. The Ben Hasrath ordered me to go to Orlais, ostensibly as a Tal Vashath, and work undercover. That's how I ended up here.
Thanks for the information, Bull.
No problem, boss. Anyway, nice talking with you. Can I help you?
Well, how did you get the name Iron Bull?
I picked it. You know how it is. Even growing up Tal Vashath, your parents had to tell you about some of it, right? No name. I figure your parents chose yours the same way. Nice going on a Dar, by the way. Weapon. I like that.
But why specifically Iron Bull?
This may surprise you, but I really like hitting things. Also, it's the Iron Bull, technically. I like having an article at the front. It makes it sound like I'm not even a person, just a... That really works for me.
See you later.
Nice. How's it going?
There are a few here who know what it means.
You're not Qunari. You're Tal Vashath. World of difference.
I still grew up looking like this in a world of mostly humans.
Yeah. Fair enough. You didn't turn into a murdering bandit, so I guess we're fine. You want to know anything about the Qunari? Since we're talking about them.
What's your problem with Tal Vashath?
As Ben Hasrath, my job back home was keeping the peace, helping people live by the Qun. Tal Vashath turned their back on all that, decided they'd rather live like savages. The Qun is not perfect, but at least there's some sense to it.
My parents weren't like that. They lived peacefully and raised me as well as any human parents could.
Well, good. They aren't the kind of Tal Vashath I've got a problem with, then. Look, if you're worried I'm going to attack you, don't be. I had a lifetime of fighting Tal-Vasha. You're not the kind I hate.
The word Qunari, does it mean what we are?
Depends on who you ask. The humans and elves who follow the Qunari who break away from the Qun are Tal-Vasha, deserters.
What about Qunari who...
The people we came from. They're called the Kossith. We came south to Thedas because the Kossith were... But I don't expect they look much like us. Whatever they are.
What's it like growing up under the Qun?
The Tamasrans raise us in these units of kids all our own age. They're like teachers or chantry sisters. They also help figure out what jobs we should do. They had me pegged for military work early on. When they learned I could hit stuff and lie, they started training me for the Ben Hasra.
It must have been a good day for you.
Yes, it's like being a block of stone with a sculptor working on you. One day, the last of the crap gets knocked off, and you can see your real shape. What you're supposed to be. That's a good day.
Do you ever think about what would happen if the Qunari conquered Orlais or Eldon?
Some folks, like Cassandra or Cullen, would do fine if they didn't die fighting. Those two love rules. But the mages... Vivienne's too political. Dorian's too arrogant, and Solus is just... weird. They'd all end up dead. Or worse. They'd kill Cole, cause, you know, demon. And Sarah would end up with her mind broken, sweeping floors in some shop. So, to answer your question, no. I don't think about it much at all.
How do the Qunari rule themselves?
It's pretty simple. The priesthood and the military keeps the Qunari safe from outside threat.
Does it act...
Not like here in Orlais. If you do that among the Qunari, the Ben Hasrath set you straight.
I heard there's no merit.
Yeah, that's...
Qunari don't...
Oh, we definitely have sex. They're
Serious?
Yes. Sometimes. Other times, you're in and out in 5 minutes. Thank you. See you next week.
Sometimes I think I understand how different the Qunari are. And then I talk to you.
Yep. Still, it's more fun here. Fewer rituals, more making it up as you go along. Plus, you folk have redheads. Redheads.
How was every day?
A baker and... They don't care about the Empire or the Cube. Mostly they worry about breaking eggs and...
See you later, Bo.
Nice talking.
Inquisitor. That's got a good ring to it. We're happy to be here, Your Worship. You need anything, let me know.
I'd like to know more.
The Chief. I never thought I'd... He's not like any commander I've ever worked for. That's for damn sure.
Is it strange?
He hasn't tried to convert us to the Qun, if that's what you're asking. The Bull's charges don't care who you light a candle for. If he hadn't told me he was Ben Hasrath, I'd have thought he left that life behind.
I didn't expect...
Not the whole band. He figures most of... Just never messed up a job. He just writes letters back home. Lots of the boys write letters back home.
How's Iron...
If you know what you're doing. It keeps us alive. I've seen bands whose captains had to prove they were swinging the biggest sword. Well, the charges might give him more lip than you'd expect, but every one of us would lay down our lives for the big ass.
How did it to...
I wasn't a soldier at the time. I was in some trouble, trying to flee to Vinter. A Tribune and his men caught me in a border town tavern. They meant to make an example of me. Bull killed them. Gave up his eye. I've been putting up with his jokes ever since.
That's how...
Yes. One of them saw trouble coming and figured he'd finish me off. Big horned idiot. Didn't even know me. Inquisitor?
Iron Bull said the...
I suspect might be worth... We could even pick up any stragglers who haven't found Skyhold yet.
Can...
Best company... In my time, we're expensive, but you'll never doubt we're worth it.
Do the Chargers...
Bull doesn't want us... We've got archers. Rocky handles fortifications and... I'll lead the frontline fighters with Grim, and the Chief goes wherever he can hit something.
I assume that...
Absolutely. We accept surrenders for ransom. Our prisoners are treated well, injuries tended.
You said something?
Right. Some noble in the Dales, and his family had a Between the axes and the torches, the Sylvans weren't too bad.
Worst part was the squirrels.
We'll talk later.
Secret lives in their words, tears they cry, but all the while
We are assembling quite the influential list of allies.
We could have stopped all that fight.
There are few orders as legendary or prestigious as the Golden Order.
They could have ducked and take the way. Anything.
He hates it all because of the darkness behind the door. Some doors should stay shut.
I'd like to talk about what happened.
No.
we're hiding from the fighting, longing to see.
Our mounts have never had better. Perhaps Master Dennett will join us now. Space like this needs an expert.
This is a fine fortress. It's very quiet. I am keen, Inquisitor.
You've told me
Then you can... They say you... That's how you create... You may think you now lead, but when you're the Tempest...
What do you mean?
I mean...
Like potion?
Battle is... It makes a mess, Inquisitor. That appeals. Or...
Is this a...
No, Inquisitor. I'll let your people do the preparation. I teach how to survive what we...
Is your name...
Should it be Tornado, or Gale, or Bluster Kerfuffle, Master of Windy Import? Tempest is simplicity. Let your enemies make those mistakes.
Why would this...
It suit... The enemy will... The Tempest leaps where they...
Very well.
Grand. This instruct... Small...
I received a bird.
You're here...
Ah, perhaps you... Childish notions. The profession...
There's more to...
It does. Let me first... Such other... Let me next... Our way is between life and death.
Is there a danger?
Try. There is no... He may come to see others as mere...
I know of the...
They are servants. I am... That is my servant.
Tell me the benefit.
Our way is... We hit... No others invite death so efficient.
I'm ready to...
He is... They are tough. First...
You're the Inquisitor, hmm?
Ruin it.
By pretending to something you're not. If you want things just so, what I... Your people asked for an artificer. My name is Three Eyes. Let's get started.
I'm ready.
I don't tinker. The artificer... What's some for... You don't want to love your toys so much that you're picking rivets off the field. Makers need...
Do you make...
I know both now.
And?
I don't teach vanity pieces. I show you how to survive.
You used the term...
The Chantry won't teach you this, but it's obvious. The Maker is an artificer. The first. He crafted his traps, his children, set them loose to do his will, then turned away. Every battlefield is a war. Artificers are makers.
Why are you called Three Eyes?
Every toy I place is another weakness gone. Another eye to watch the enemy. I can be everywhere on the battlefield, and so can you.
What makes this...
Nothing beats the preparation of a good trap. Let a child... That look in their eyes when they know they've lost. It's all the sweeter when they don't even know why. We control. We shape.
I'm ready to...
You need to... Here are instructions. If you...
I've heard rumors of abandoned warden camps all over these parts. If we have time, I'd like to take a look. See if there's any...
Varric's friend.
Corruption.
Corypheus.
That could very well explain why so many have disappeared.
Are you feeling...
If I start hearing things, I promise you'll be the first to know. I think the entire world is looking over its shoulder, wondering if the Inquisition's watching.
What do you think of...
Restoring... But that's not the end of it, is it? Not... The Lady See... I don't know where you stand on the matter, and I'll admit I haven't made up my mind either.
We should return.
As you wish.
You knew where Hawk was all along!
You're damned right I did.
You conniving little shit!
You kidnapped me! You interrogated me! What did you expect?
Hey! Enough!
You're taking his side?
I said enough!
We needed someone to lead this Inquisition. First, Leliana and I searched for the hero of Ferelden, but he had vanished. Then we looked for Hawk, but he was gone too. We thought it all connected. It was just...
The Inquis...
Hawk would have been at the Conclave if anyone could have saved Most Holy...
You can't change the past.
So I must... Varric is even...
He's with us.
We all know whose side you're on, Varric. It will never be the Inquisition's.
Attacking him now won't help us, Cassandra.
Ha! Exactly.
And you better not be keeping anything...
I must not... Go.
You know what You people...
He but I didn't... I'm such a fool.
What if you hadn't...
Honestly, he supported the... But this isn't about... I don't deserve to be here.
You're too hard on...
Not hard.
You can't believe...
I want you to... Maybe if we'd found Hawk or the hero of... But he did... I don't know how...